A very good afternoon to everybody watching today. This is, of course, the memo discussion of the English First Additional Language Paper 1, which was written yesterday, by which you can deduce, if you are watching a recording, that this broadcast is going out on the 1st of July. Welcome, everybody. Please forgive me, we may have a technical issue or two today. I'm trying out new controls. So if I make any tremendous errors and accidentally broadcast the Titanic movie or something like that, just bear with me. I hope that will right itself. Now, just my own comments about this paper. I absolutely loved it. It's a beautiful paper. It's not too easy, it's not too difficult, it's challenging without being monstrous, and it's very creative. It's got texts that appeal to everybody. We should not have any problems here. There are one or two issues with where previous knowledge or pre-existing knowledge is required, but these are minor issues which we shall tackle as we go through this. Let us start by looking not yet at the paper, but at the marking guidelines. There we are. Oh boy, it works. These new controls I was talking about. And let's take a look at if the instructions are maybe different from all the previous marking guidelines that you've seen. And the answer to that is no, this is more or less standard. But let's go through them anyway, just to make sure that there's nothing confusing here. Right. Their candidates must answer all the questions. Candidates' responses should be assessed as objectively as possible. This is always an issue. I know from my own experience of marking the paper ones, the mid-year stuff, the NCS stuff, we tend to add a huge amount of extra information onto the memos. So don't be too surprised if it happens this time. It's just the way things are. No matter how good the examiner is, it is impossible, physically impossible, to predict all the correct answers that you could receive. Right, so let's go first to marking the comprehension. And basically it says there that as long as the answer is understandable, spelling and grammar and stuff doesn't matter too much, all right? Because it's not going to affect meaning. It's all about meaning here. Okay. Then the second bullet, it talks about introducing words from other languages, which happens a lot in many exams, seeing that this is the first additional language exam. Yes, you're going to get words from other languages. The general thing is just ignore unless the word is already on the in the text. Okay, and here we come to the obvious one: the yes, no, agree, disagree, all that sort of thing. The marks are only for substantiation. This is the thing about open-ended questions. You don't reward somebody for having an opinion, you reward them for explaining what their opinion is. Okay, this is a big one, the one-word answers. A lot of the candidates, it's no secret, they struggle with English, and that's not even surprising because English is such a difficult language, and very often they take a chance, you know, the good old-fashioned shotgun method. Instead of writing the single word, they think the word's in that sentence there, so they simply write out the whole sentence, hoping that the word is included in it. But in doing that, of course, they demonstrate that they don't know what the word is. Anyway, but if I recall correctly, by the way, this doesn't come up in this exam. No, it's not relevant to this exam, I think. Right. And again, 2-3 facts required, range given, not relevant. We don't have any list questions in this paper. Dialectal variations, means that sometimes people use unexpected words even though they are correct. Please accept them. And then, of course, the multiple choice questions. They're supposed to write down just the letter, but for some reason, some of them insist on writing out the answer in full. Well, okay, it's up to them. Okay, so those are our instructions for our comprehension. Now, it is my intention to read the text in full. For those of you that have not yet done so, there may be a comment or two that we can add to it. So let us then click over to our comprehension. We're not going to look at the instructions now. We are doing the marking, not the writing. But let's take a look. And we have here text A by a Leonie Wagner. The name is, of course, of no particular consequence, although obviously you do have to acknowledge authorship. But it's interesting that some of you watching this will not know if Leonie is a male or female name. Bear that in mind. You don't think it's relevant yet, but it is. I got caught out with a few of the names on this paper. Okay, and we start by looking at the title, Tut's Mythbusters. Now, what is Tut? Now, the first thing I thought when I read this title is that it had something to do with the legends surrounding Tutankhamun, alias King Tut. So this is the sort of thing that goes through the minds of readers, and it can sometimes be unexpected. And there is a title question, suitability of the title, etc., etc. So that was one of the first things that popped into my mind. Was this was definitely going to be set in ancient Egypt. Boy, was I wrong. It's actually in Toronto in Canada. Okay, so let's read through the text. And the first thing to note is that they're in Canada in winter. It is below freezing in Toronto, Canada, as Sipamandla Mqina and Philanjalo Ndlovu get ready to present their invention to a room full of strangers from 25 countries. Okay, let's go up slightly. Final year information technology students from Tshwane University of Technology, or TUT, their mystery is resolved. Mqina and Ndlovu are the team representing South Africa at the Red Bull Basement University Global Workshop. Here, students from around the world share innovative ideas for positive change with the aim to use technology for good and to improve life for other students. The 4-day program of workshops, masterclasses, and mentoring sessions will see the teams present their ideas to an expert panel of developers, technology gurus, and potential sponsors. For Mqina and Ndlovu, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Neither has left South Africa before, nor set foot in an aeroplane. Mqina says he is very excited and very nervous. This is a life-changing thing for us. Our families and other young people are interested in technology. It also means that other people will realize that in Africa there is technology and that people in South Africa can build something with technology. Their project came about because of 3 unrelated experiences with blind people. Ndlovu was sympathetic to the struggles of the blind because he witnessed the difficulties his blind landlady had to face. Then he and Mqina encountered blind students on campus. Once a fellow student physically bumped into them and their first reaction was annoyance. When we realized it was someone who couldn't see, we felt so guilty, says Ndlovu. Then they saw another blind student walk into an entrance gate that was usually open, but on this occasion was closed. Realizing the blind student's struggles, they decided to come up with a solution. With their specialist skills in intelligent industrial systems, the duo began to build a device that would help blind students. Now known as C4Me, I like that, this gadget helps blind people find their way around campus by using a mapping system. There are 2 working prototypes, both fitted with ultrasonic sensors that pinpoint the user's location and destination and then issue voice instructions that guide them while alerting them to any obstacles along the way. The device can also answer calls, read messages, and read banknotes. We made sacrifices and gave our time, our money, and our energy because we believed in this, Gr12 says. When we started working on it, we didn't know about the Red Bull competition. We did it because we wanted to help blind students on campus. Ndlovu and Gr12 met at TUT in 2018 when both were in their second year studying IT. They quickly became friends, partly because they have been through similar challenges, but also because they share the same interests. Gr12, the youngest of 3 children, had first encountered death at the age of 8 when his father died. 2 years later, his mom became sick and passed away. Then they went to live with their maternal grandmother. Ndlovu, 26, lived with his father after his parents were divorced. His father died when he was 9 and he lived with his mother. Also the youngest, Ndlovu has 3 brothers and 4 sisters. Only 2 years after their meeting, the best friends sit in Toronto. Both say that they wish their parents could have lived to see what their sons have achieved. The thrill of flying, being abroad and meeting students from 25 different countries has been an eye-opener, says Ndlovu. We are underestimated because people see us as the poor black kids from Africa. Some were surprised that we have a working prototype and that we know 7 programming languages, a requirement at our university, Gr12 says. Ndlovu and Gr12 could not have been happier that they made it to the top 10, although the team from Austria won. The day after their final presentation, we meet for lunch before they board a flight, leaving behind Canada's cold and Usain Bolt-like internet speed. This experience has been life-changing, says Ndlovu. The one thing I would have wanted was for my parents to see me take off in a plane and to see that their last-born son made it to the top 10 in a global technology competition. Whatever the future holds, they both say that this experience has shown them that the impossible is possible. Okay, and as you can see, that is taken from the Sunday Times of the 26th of January last year. And the whole thing ends off on a paradox. When you say the impossible is possible, you are contradicting yourself. It can also be regarded as an oxymoron. But there's 3 words involved, not just 2. Anyway, there we are. A great text. It's, I think, open and clear. The one problem we may have is the mention of Usain Bolt, because not everybody knows who he is. So, and that is actually the basis of one of the questions. But let's take a look then at the questions. Okay, standard instructions, 1-word answers, only question number and word, multiple choice questions, only question number. Oh, I've got to mention this. We have a standing joke. If you are faced with a multiple choice question and you have absolutely no idea what the correct answer is, answer C. Because 90% of examiners give priority to the letter C. In this paper, that mistake has not been made. There are 3 sets of multiple choice questions, and not one of them has C as the correct answer. So, hats off to the examiner, and I suspect I know who you are. And I laughed when I noticed that detail. Oh, the other thing there, this is slightly off the topic, but just bear with me. When you are asked to identify a figure of speech, if you have absolutely no idea what the figure of speech is, just say metaphor. It's got an 80% chance of being correct. More metaphors pop up in figure of speech questions than anything else. Okay, now let's carry on here. Right, refer to paragraph 2, and it says state one of the aims of the Red Bull Basement University Global Workshop. Boy, that is a complex name. I wonder if it's advertising for something. Okay, well, let's go back to paper 2 and let's see if we can spot those, paragraph 2, and see if we can spot those aims. Okay, share innovative ideas for positive change with the aim to use technology for good and to improve life for other students. All right. I think we've got 3 different potential answers to that. Let us see what the memo has instructed us to do. There we are. It's share innovative ideas, use technology for good, better the lives of students. Short, sweet, simple, any one of those. Okay, so that one, perfectly straightforward. We shouldn't get any issues on that one. Let's go back to our questions then. Right, now you notice here the classic true-false question is no longer with us. Examiners no longer say, identify true or false, because there's no mark given for the true or false component. So now, obviously, it's why. You have to say why the statement is false. The true or false component is given to you. And it says here, various groups from South Africa participated in the Red Bull Basement University Global Challenge. Well, obviously it's false, because we know from the text that only Gr12 and Gr12 were there as the team from South Africa. There were no other South African teams there. It's as easy as that. Let's take a look at the memo answer. And there it says much the same thing. Team selected to represent South Africa. It's a simple single mark question. Right. And now we come to a multiple choice. Great fun. Technology gurus. Now this also could be confusing. A guru is actually a wise spiritual man. However, it's no longer a commonly used word. For an English second language speaker, this might be quite tricky. But let's take a look at what the answers are. We've got people who know everything about technology, right? People who are experts in developing apps. Okay, people who try to improve the lives of the blind, and people who study computer languages. There. That is actually quite a challenging question at first additional language level. Of course, the answer is A, people who know everything about technology. But those distractors, in case you don't know, the answers which are not correct are known as the distractors. And they're very, very well selected because they are from the text. In other words, they've each got this whiff of, hey, possibly that could be correct. This is not going to be one that a lot of people are going to guess correctly. Okay, let's move on to 1.2.2. Now, for this one, the answer is not in the text, where it's asking, explain why potential sponsors were also among the adjudicators. It merely says in the text that they were there, right? And, well, obviously, they're looking for stuff to develop for money. Let us see what the actual memo answer is. Here we are. Here we've got it. As a panel member, they would be able to see the potential in a team's invention and decide to sponsor the further development or production of it. Okay, very good logical answer. You're going to get it obviously in other forms, but that gives you a good idea to a guideline. This is why we call these things now marking guidelines as opposed to memorandums. Memoranda. The plural is memoranda, sorry. Oh, the joys of being a grammar Nazi. Okay, let's move on to 1.3. Okay, refer to paragraph 4. Explain why Mgr considers participating in this competition as a life-changing thing. Let's go to paragraph 3. Let's do what the kids are going to do, or the candidates, I mustn't call them kids. But here's paragraph 3. Okay, the 4-day program of workshops, masterclasses, and mentoring sessions will see the teams present their... am I at the correct... Sorry, let me just go back to the question. Refer to paragraph 4. Sorry, I was getting a bit confused there. Okay, paragraph 3 didn't sound particularly relevant. Okay, for Mgr and Gr12, this is opportunity of a lifetime. Okay, neither left South Africa before. I definitely say that as a life-changing, select that as a life-changing experience. Climbing on board an aeroplane. It's always a thrill the first time. It's always a thrill any time, actually. I love flying. Okay. Yeah, those are the two answers at which I would look. Let's see what our memo answer says. Here we are. Experience new things for the first time which change their lives, will change people's perception of technology in Africa, can make people realize that Africa can use technology to build two things, accept any two of the above answers. Okay. Not quite the answer that I would have selected there. Let's just read this question again. Okay, 1.3. Okay, paragraph 4. Explain why Mgr considered participating in this competition as a life-changing thing. Yes. I would, in this case, I would broaden the answers a little bit. Right? I would say that the climbing onto an aeroplane and leaving the country for the first time is also life-changing. So should we add those to the memo? I would recommend it. Okay. Now, 1.4, discuss what has led to Gr12 and Mgr's idea for their patent. A very interesting one, this. Now we have to see what motivated them. And if we go back here, we look at paragraph 5, and it says there, 3 unrelated experiences with blind people. Okay, so you've got watching his blind landlady. Second, you've got the student that bumps into them on campus. And third, you've got a student walking into a gate, which was assumed to be open. Okay, so let us then go back to our questions. And let's go to the memo and see what the memo answer is. Right, there we are. Okay, the blind landlady. And then blind students struggling. A blind student bumped into them. Another blind student walked into an entrance gate. Now, please take note that this memo answer is very explicit and very complete. It must have 2 sections. It must refer first to the person who was not a student, in other words, the blind landlady, and it must refer to something to do with a person who is a student. So here's 1 mark, and you must watch out that one of the 3 of these have been specified in the answer in order for a full 2 marks to be given. Okay, award 1 mark for blind landlady and 1 mark for blind students. Okay, definitely there. All right, let's go back to our questions. And we have here 1.5.1, the name of their invention is C for me, write this name in words, which is fairly straightforward. In your own words. Now, please note this, in your own words. Means that the candidates cannot simply lift from the text. It must be original words. They can take certain words from the text, but it mustn't be verbatim. All right? Decide for yourselves how important it is to not to quote. Some quoting is going to take place, but it mustn't be like whole sentences. Okay, let's take a look at our memo answer there. Oh dear. I've just exited the memo. We're going to have to just switch off for 30 seconds while we sort out the technical glitch. I did warn you, my apologies for this. I did warn you that this was likely to happen. But please be patient. We'll be back within a minute. Welcome back. My apologies for that brief glitch. I've noticed on the screen, if you see it there, you've got these horrible, unfriendly little black crosses. And I see if I click onto a black cross, it makes everything go away. It's very sad. But anyway, we have our memo back. Thanks to some assistance from the technical team seated looking at me. They all seem to have more experience of this than I have. Okay, here is our pair of memo answers. Right, we've got C for me, which is absolutely straightforward. I would say if they omit the full stop, it's not a crime, as long as the 3 words are there. Right, here's the second answer, ultrasonic sensors. Okay, it identifies where the user is, voice to tell them where to go. Device senses obstacles, obstructions. I quite like this. This is a good answer. Tells the user where to go to avoid them. Yes. You can add various other things to that. I mean, you can mention the whole thing that it's when it talks about ultrasonic sensors, it's actually sending out sound pulses, which bounce off and come back because the speed of sound is a known quantity, so it gives exact range and direction and all that sort of thing. Clever device this, by the way. Okay, let's then go to our next one. Here we have lines 34 to 35. All right, in this case, I'm going to go to those lines. Please bear with me because, well, this is a very good idea. My standard method of going through a paper is I start with the whole paper and I write it myself to see what answers I would come up with. Right, so we've got here, we made sacrifices, gave our time, our money and our energy because we believed in this. That's the sentence involved in this case. Okay, going back to the question. Oops, overshot it a bit, there we are. Now, what does this tell us about Mqina and Ndlovu's character? Right, substantiate your answer. Right, well, they made sacrifices, they used their own money, and they believed in it. So that would tell me immediately, I'm going to say this is a determined and motivated pair who are selfless, all right? Because they are prepared to give up their time, their money, in order to pursue a dream, and they stuck with it the whole way through. Let's now see what the memo answer says, but that would be mine. Okay, yep, there we are. Selfless, unselfish, self-sacrificing, generous. Yes, because they were willing to give of themselves. Okay, there's the motivation. But I would definitely say motivated, driven. These are people who persevered because they wanted to make this thing to help blind people. They weren't going for a reward or anything like that. We know that already. But they were driven. So definitely that, I would say, should be included as a correct answer there. It would be very easy to motivate. Okay, note the 1 mark for characteristic, 1 mark for substantiation. All right, we go back to our question paper. Now here is a glitch which might or may or might not pop up. State 2 aspects Gr12 and Gr12 have in common. Now, let's go back and look at the actual paragraph from which these answers are going to come. Okay, here we are here. But it doesn't specify limited to this paragraph. It should say refer to paragraph 8, but it doesn't. Therefore, we must accept answers from other paragraphs. Okay, they're both studying for the same amount of time at TUT. Okay, been through similar challenges, share the same interests. Okay, both lost parents, right? But here's another problem. This here could potentially contain the answer. So in other words, if you get an answer from the previous question repeated, I would say we'd have to accept that. I did actually look up the word aspect, and you know, it's features of a thing or person or something. So let's take a look at the memo answer, which says they lost their parents at a young age, youngest of their siblings, same interests, experienced similar challenges. Those are definitely correct. However, these here, selfless, unselfish, self-sacrificing, generous, are also aspects. These are character aspects. So if you encounter those, you must award a mark, because it definitely addresses, it answers the question directly, even though it's not technically supposed to be part of the answer. Please take note of that. Okay. Now, any 2 of the above, that's fine. Add to that the personality traits. Now we come to one of my favorite questions. Let me just get back to the questions there. Right. Identify the figure of speech. Yahoo! It is not a metaphor! That one thrilled me. This is a brilliant question, because this figure of speech is in such a non-standard form. I loved it. Okay, there's one giveaway. It's got the word like. So obviously it's a simile. But a lot of candidates are not going to get that, because it's not a simile in the normal form of like or as. It's completely, it's a part of a compound adjective. It's a compound adjective which is being used as a simile. So I really think this is brilliant. Now, question here. Not everybody knows who Usain Bolt is. Okay, I'm widely read. I know that he's one of the fastest runners on the planet. But there may be people who don't know that. Please allow for that in the marking, because unless they know that this refers to speed, it's going to be confusing. It'll also make it very difficult to explain the effectiveness of the figure of speech. Okay, but having said that, use your discretion. That's why we regard this as a marking guideline as opposed to a memorandum. Right? So let's take a look at our answers. There we have simile. Okay, and the internet speed in Canada is being compared to Usain Bolt. You know, world sprinter, athlete, runners, internet speed very fast. This is true, by the way. My Wi-Fi at home has a download speed of 11 megs. Basic household Wi-Fi in the States is 30. That's the poor man's Wi-Fi, 30 megs. And standard for most people, especially gamers, is 200. Wow, that's a huge difference. So they must be able to associate that with speed. Okay, back to the questions. What have we got here? This one, incidentally, goes straight to my heart as well. And for many of you, you'll discover this one day. What is Ndlovu's only regret about participating in the event? Well, basically, it was that his parents weren't alive to see, they weren't still alive to see his achievement. And that's, from my point of view, that's I wouldn't say a sore point, but it's a regret that I have also on occasions. I look at, where I'm living today and the work I'm doing and that sort of thing, and I can't help thinking, gee, I wish my father had seen this. But, well, I mean, I suppose it's a very common regret that many of us have sometime in our lives. All right. So, let's take a look at the memo answer. Yep, his parents could not witness his success, okay, or that he made it into the top 10 in the worldwide technology competition. They could not see him boarding an aeroplane. Yes, any one of those correct. Good. Then, this article is only relevant to university students. Discuss your view. Now that one is completely subjective. It's a yes, no, and followed by an opinion. I mean, when I saw that, I simply said, no, that's silly. This article is relevant to me. I mean, I've got bits that I can relate to beautifully. And, I've also been involved with taking care of disabled people and stuff like that. So definitely, this is right up my street. A good article. And I'm not a university student. Bingo, there we are. QED, case closed. Sorry, QED. Quod erat demonstrandum, that's Latin, which means this has been demonstrated. In other words, argument proved. Or argument proven. Right. So the memo answer, let's take a look. Because you are going to get some people who'll come up with a yes. And there we are. Very logical. We won't read through the whole thing, but they're very logical, well-stated memo answers for either a yes or a no answer. And here, the note, accept suitable responses that reflect candidates' understanding of the entire passage. Right? Responses must be grounded in the text, yes. And then the 1 mark for an answer that is not well substantiated, all right? Or accept a combination answer with both yes and no, in other words. Okay, straightforward that one. Let's go back to our title question, refer to the title. Would you regard the title of this article as suitable? And discuss. Now, discuss is, of course, investigate via reasoning and argument. So there must be some reasoning in this whole thing. We're looking for a reason why the title is suitable or not. And let's go back up to our title. As you may remember, it's Tuts Mythbusters. So it's the Mythbusters, if you want to translate that, it's the Mythbusters of the Tshwane University of Technology. Right. Now here also, remember Mythbusters, it's that famous TV program. But once again, there may be people who have never seen it, especially some of the younger generation, even though very popular 10 years back. But you might encounter people who don't know about the TV program. Remember my initial confusion when seeing this. So use your discretion is all I'll say there. Let's go back to, so would you regard the title of this article as suitable? I would say yes, because they broke open the stereotyping and the myth that Africans are technologically challenged and we don't use technology properly. No, well, they certainly extinguished that myth. So from my point of view, yes, it's a good title. And let's take a look here. Right. Okay, there's a no answer, not suitable. Majority of readers will not know what it refers to. Okay. Now the acronym TUT. Oh, difference between acronym and an abbreviation. An acronym can be pronounced, an acronym is an abbreviation which can be pronounced as a word. So in this case we have TUT. We don't have to say T-U-T. We just say TUT. All right? And this actually talks about, some readers don't know about Mythbusters. All right, so there we are. It's a potential no. And then, of course, here's the yes answer. But it says, accept other suitable responses. And as usual, responses must be grounded in the text. And you can accept a combination answer, yes or no. And you can give 1 mark for an answer which is correct but lacks substance, as I put it. Okay. Now, if you don't mind, let's just take a break for about 60 seconds, just so that you can drink your water or your coffee or whatever it is. And then we'll carry on within, as I say, 60 seconds or so. I'll see you again shortly. Welcome back. We are now beginning our second section of this memo discussion. Now we are looking at the multimedia text, which in this case is a poster, I think. It certainly looks like a poster to me. All right, and let's look at it. It says there, World Book Day, and we've got Thursday, the 24th of April. So, in other words, it's past, and in quite big writing, you've got dress up as your favorite book character. That was actually what caught my attention. I was just considering which one of my favorite book characters would it be. Possibly the Emperor Claudius, because I'm very fond of the 2 books, I, Claudius, and Claudius the God by Robert Graves. Beautiful historical novels. But I also think I wouldn't make a bad Mr. Pickwick from the Charles Dickens novels. But anyway, I have this picture of myself striding along. We've all seen that little advertisement, or what's it, the Johnny Walker man, striding along with his top hat and his cane and his 100-year-old out-of-date clothes and those walking boots, and I could dress up like that. Okay, then over here for students and teachers, prizes will be awarded for the best male and female costumes. All right. And we've got a little bookworm in action in the corner there. And please note that the OO looks like eyes. Right. Let's take a look at our questions. Okay. And then answer all the questions in your own words. Okay, that's good. At whom is the poster aimed? A perfectly logical question. That's, so to speak, your target market. And there's a clue there. Students and teachers. Presumably, who like reading, because this is a World Book Day. However, there's one more that the advertiser is unconsciously attracting. What about people who like dressing up. Now, I'm being very naughty here because that's not the question. The question is at whom has the advertiser aimed this? And he's not aiming at people who like dressing up. That's merely by the by. So it's got to be students and teachers who like reading. Let's take a look at the memo answer there. Yeah, at teachers and students who love reading. There we are. Simple, straightforward, logical. I will not recommend any additions, or sorry, I would not recommend any additions to that. That is a perfect answer in my mind. Okay, so let's go back to our questions quickly. Okay, what is the purpose of the poster? What is our purpose there? Well, the central theme is World Book Day. It's getting people to participate in the World Book Day celebrations. Let us check what our memo answer says. Advertise, promote, make people aware, create interest in World Book Day. Okay. Good. Logical there. There. Explain how the poster tries to persuade readers to support World Book Day. 2 points. All right. Well, I would immediately go for the dressing up aspect of this, and who knows? I mean, I like winning prizes. Everybody likes something for Mahala. Why not? There we are. I've just used a foreign word in an English production. Mahala. Sorry, not foreign, a non-English word. I must be more precise because it's definitely a South African word. Therefore, cannot be classified as foreign. And let's see what our memo answer says. Prizes to be won. Yeah, there we are. The prize gets them every time and can dress up. The two things, dressing up and potentially getting a prize. Top quality. I like this. Okay. Then, discuss the effectiveness of changing the two O's in book into I's. And please note, eyes spelled E-Y-E-S. Rather an awkward homophone that when it's read out aloud. Okay, so let's take a look at this. When you got this thing that looks like a pair of eyes there, is it effective? And we know that when it's discuss, it's investigate by reasoning and argument. So obviously, it's open. It could be either a yes, because you've got what looks like a pair of eyes reading. It looks to me like something scanning across a page. Or you could say, no, it's not effective, but I don't know what your logic would be behind that. But let's take a look at memo answer. Okay, so it says it is effective, attracts attention. Okay, not effective. Maybe too childish. Yeah, I think it's great. That's not childish. But I'm allowed to disagree. Don't worry. We're allowed to have our own opinions. But there we are. Other suitable responses. 1 mark for a watered down answer. Accept a combination answer of both yes and no. So there we are. Once again, use your discretion. Okay. And once again, we are very briefly, literally for no more than 60 seconds, we're going to take a break. You know, it's coffee break or water or whatever. And in case you're wondering, I finished off my bottle of water in the last break. So I know how necessary this is. So see you again within a minute. Welcome back. This is the third part in our memo discussion today, or marking guideline discussion, in which we are looking at the English First Additional Language Paper 1 that was written on the 30th of June. And in this section, we are going to be looking at the summary, and I want to do this in some detail for the simple reason I've been doing a lot of SBA moderation lately, and I know that summaries are very badly marked. Let's take a careful look at this. I know also that some of the candidates, they still haven't got the summarizing technique correct. So bear with me if I go into excessive detail now. Number one in approaching a summary is you have to read those instructions with care, because that will tell you what to take out of the text and what to abandon. Now, let's read it together. As part of a Be Aware campaign at school, you have to write a newsletter to parents regarding their children's online safety. You have found the following article in which you identified guidelines for parents that will help them to ensure their children's online safety. Now I'm going to read that section again. Guidelines for parents that will help them to ensure their children's online safety. So what are we looking for here? We are looking for tips that we can give to parents for them in turn to apply this advice to their children, or pass this advice on to their children. And we're going to read through, after we've gone through the rest of the instructions, we'll read through carefully and check to see, are we looking at a tip, or are we merely looking at a statement of fact? Or are we looking at advice, or are we merely looking at a statement of fact? Okay, there's sometimes a very narrow dividing line between those two different things. Okay, so what does it say here? Read the passage below, text C, and list 7 things that parents can do to ensure their children's online safety. Again, 7 things that parents can do to ensure their children's online safety. It's not just know about it. They must do it. It must be practical, physical advice. Something they can do. Okay, let's look at the instructions. List 7 guidelines in full sentences, using not more than 70 words. This is something that I see frequently. Markers do not count the words. Some handwritings are deceiving. Certain handwritings can make it look as if there are fewer words. Words must be counted. You don't have to physically count every single word unless you're suspicious that it's far too long. I mean, you know, normally it's an average of, let's say, 10 words per line. So you just need to look. You've got 10 words on average, 7 lines, 70 words, not a problem. But if you've got 12 words per line and you've got 7 lines, problem, big problem. Because that means you've got to cross out once it's gone past 70. Okay, this is standard policy for first additional language. Summary must be in point form, although if it's written as a paragraph, you've still got to mark it, sorry. Okay, 1 point per sentence. That's another thing I've noticed, is that people tick twice. Markers tick twice in one sentence because there's 2 points. You can only have 1 point per sentence. Use your own words as far as possible. Okay, this one is very open to interpretation. I say, and most people would agree with me, that as long as the sentence isn't absolutely verbatim, it can have quite a lot of content from the text in it that hasn't changed. But it mustn't be word for word. It must have at least one change somehow. And then you can regard it as original. Okay, and then total number of words at the end of the summary. And I keep explaining to these candidates that that's not for the marker. The marker's got to check the words anyway. That's for himself. Okay. So let's go. Let's just remind ourselves now, for what are we searching here? Things that parents can do to ensure their children's online safety. Right, now let's read through the text. The latest CASCAPI survey shows that 84% of parents worldwide spend only a total of 46 minutes talking to their children about online security through their entire childhood. Is that advice? No, it is not. It is a statement of fact, setting out a problem. There's no advice in there about what to do. Now we carry on. To reduce the potential risk children face, parents or guardians need to take time to explain the dangers of the internet. Okay, so immediately we have advice here. Take time to explain the dangers of the internet. All right? That is definitely a piece of advice. We've got number one. And regularly teach their children about safe internet habits. That's advice number two. Right? Teach children about safe internet habits regularly, on an ongoing basis. Teach them how to use the internet correctly and safely. Right? We carry on here. It is important for parents to form a nurturing and trusting relationship with their children, to protect and encourage them to be safe when on the internet. Is this something that parents can do? Yes. Yes. Develop a relationship where there is trust on the part of the kids. So the kids are happy to listen to the advice coming from the parents. Okay. They should teach their children to be fully present in the moment, as well as encourage to be fully present in the moment. Is that advice? Yes. Teach the children to be, and I'm quoting now, fully present in the moment. In other words, aware. They must always be aware of what's going on when they're on the internet. Okay. As well as encourage open and honest communication. Is that advice? Yes. It's another piece of advice. Encouraging open, honest communication. Candid conversation between them and the parents. Okay, let's move on here. They should guide and support children to form an identity outside of technology. Is that advice? Yes. Guide and support your children so that they're not living in a techno bubble, but they can go outside and swim and play or whatever it is that kids do outside nowadays. Because I know that we are now rapidly evolving into the latest form of humans. We are becoming Homo electronicus. Not my own original one that I'm quoting somebody else, but I found that very amusing. Right, having said that, let's get back to the subject here. This can be achieved by... Okay, now immediately we're coming up with advice. But it's the same advice. Look, they should guide and support children to form an identity outside of technology. This can be achieved. You see, it's the same advice. Can be achieved by helping children to connect to nature and to entertain themselves without technology. So there's only one piece of advice. That's it. The second sentence relates to the first. Good. It may be helpful if parents set up sensible rules with regard to their children's online activity. Okay, setting up rules, that's advice. Okay. Parents should offer help when their children are looking for information online, teaching them to use it carefully. Is that advice? Yes. Offer help when the kids go online. They should discuss with their children how much time they can spend on social media. Is that advice? Yes. It's something that they can do. Have a discussion. Make sure that social media is not the be-all and the end-all of the child's life. and teach them about what information is not okay to share online. Okay, is that advice? Yes. Some things should not be put online. End of story. But rather teach them how to take care when choosing, share online. Furthermore, parents should try not to limit their child's online circle of friends. Is that advice? Yes. Don't limit the number of friends, but rather teach them how to take care when choosing friends. Now, those two sections to me are basically the same advice. Don't limit, just tell them to choose with discretion. Okay? So I would say that that's definitely advice, but it's the same piece of advice. It's closely related. Then we've got here, Casper, Sky and the Green Bear is a short illustrated story by Marlies Sledgers that parents can use to help younger children to understand what is okay in the digital world and what is not. Is that advice? Yes, it is. All right? It's saying use this book or books similar to it as a method of helping younger children handling themselves online correctly. And that's that. If we read through the text. Let us then go to our memo and take a look at what the memo says. Okay, now as always we've got the quotation and then of course the facts in other words. Right, the first one, perfectly logical, take time to explain the dangers. Parents must explain the potential dangers of the internet. Straightforward. Regularly teach their children about safe internet habits. Yes. Teach them safe internet practices. Here we are. This one, I would say we should actually break this into two parts. I did say that earlier. It is important for parents to form a nurturing and trusting relationship with their children to protect and encourage them to be safe when on the internet. Yes. And then here, have an open relationship with children and talk to them about safety on the internet. Yes. But they should teach their children to be fully present in the moment as well as encourage open and honest communication. I would regard that one as potentially a separate point, a point by itself. So I would recommend that is added to the memo. Being fully present in the moment, in other words, being aware. That it's very important this. What does that mean? They must be aware of what's going on when they are on the computer, and they must be alert. So it's that word alert. I would include that as another point. Here we come on, guidance support children to form an identity outside technology. This can be achieved. You see, that's the same thing. And I agree with what this says. All of this is the same point. Help children to discover who they are outside the world of technology. Help children to keep themselves busy without technology. All right? I think that one's pretty well covered. Offer help. Yes, we looked at that. Teach children to use online information carefully. Discuss with the children about the time. Yes. Set rules on how much time. Yes. Perfectly logical. Parents should not try to limit, but rather teach them to take care. Yes. Okay, very much correct, that one. Short illustrated story, and it says here parents can use illustrated stories to teach young children about online safety. Okay, so just that one point, I would recommend that you insert another one over here based on this sentence here. But otherwise, that memo is nicely complete. Let's just look. There have been some changes to the instructions on marking the summary, so let's take a look at these. It says there's 7 marks for 7 points. Yes, 3 marks for language. Now don't forget, the 3 marks really isn't for language. It's 3 marks for putting it into their own words. They are going to get those 3 marks if they've been able to avoid quoting verbatim. It's as simple as that. There we are. When the candidate is not quoted, it's 1 to 3 marks, still the same. 1 to 3 points gives you 1 mark, 4 to 5 points, 2 marks, 6 to 7 points, 3 marks. Okay, and then when they do quote, if there are 6 to 7 quotes, now this is assuming that they've got all 7 points down. They do very often get all 7 points, because I noticed that answering the summary is a skill that most of the kids have developed quite nicely. But, well, if you've got 6 to 7 quotes, no language mark, 4 to 5 quotes. Now, this is assuming that all 7 points are correct. All right? So, I mean, you can't have, for example, it says here, 2 to 3 quotes to a maximum of 2 language marks. If he's got only 3 quotes, say, but he's only got 1 of the 7 answers correct, you can't give 2 language marks. In fact, you can't give any marks at all because the few bits that he may have dug out does not qualify for a language mark. Okay, having said that, it's confusing, but work on this one here. 1 to 3 points, 1 mark, 4 to 5 points, 2 mark, 6 to 7 points, 3 marks, and that's that. Now, please note, even if it's written in paragraph format instead of point form, assess it. All right? Remember, it's exactly the same thing. One point per sentence and no more than 70 words. Please assess. Okay? Okay, no penalty for incorrect or number of words used omitted. Now, this one here is vital. Please apply it. If the word limit is exceeded, read up to the last sentence above the stipulated upper limit and ignore the rest of the summary. What I do, I take my pen. Here is a red pen. And if I can see that it's gone past the limit, I physically count the words. And then I just make a little like that, and I draw a line that way and that way to show that that is where 70 words happens, and anything after that is just crossed out. And it makes a point also when the candidates get their marked work back and they see this, what looks like a hazard pattern form on it. I make my point very clearly. Okay. And finally, in order for the fact to be credited, it must be coherent. It must be an understandable sentence. You can't say something like, for example, you just say something like, taking time to explain. It must be in more detail. Who must take time? Okay, we know it's the parents. Explain what? And we do often get these little sentence fragments in the work of weaker candidates. So watch out for that as well. If it's not a coherent sentence with clear meaning, it can't be credited with a point, with a mark. Okay, it's break time again. So once again, only for a minute, no more. And then we'll be back in about 60 seconds. I'll see you shortly. Right, welcome back. Let's carry on. Just a reminder, this is the fourth part in our memo discussion of the English First Additional Language exam, which was written on the 30th of June. And now we have reached section C, We shall start by taking a look at the advertisement. And we have here, wanted puppy raisers. Okay, and then if you look at the text, are you a responsible person? Do you like to help your neighbor? Do you love dogs? We need you to help raise the next generation of working dogs while learning about training and dog behavior. Can you care for a puppy for 12 to 16 months? Attend one training class per week during working hours. And then, of course, it says limited to residents of Johannesburg, Pretoria, East Rand and West Rand. And you've got contact Claudia on claudiasguidedog.org.za for more information. Guide Dogs Association of South Africa. And there, of course, you've got all these cute and cuddly pictures of puppies. There's what looks like Labrador puppies, and that one is a slightly wrinklier breed. I'm not sure. And this one looks like some sort of beagle or spaniel. I don't know for sure. Anyway, my first reaction when I saw this was, they've got to be joking. If I were to raise a puppy for 16 months, I would develop a bond with the dog. And I would never be able to give it up. So this is not for me. And I'd love to know how many other people come up with exactly the same reaction there. I mean, to go to all that trouble of bringing up a thing from like six weeks all the way up to 16 months, and then having to give it away. Oh no, I could not do that to a pet. And these things obviously become close pets. So I admire the people who can do it, but I can't. Anyway, having said that, let's get back to our questions. Name 2 techniques the advertiser uses to attract the reader's attention. Okay, the pictures are a classic technique. Cute, cuddly puppies. That is an attention grabber. But you notice also the various fonts and the fact that the word there, wanted, is loud and bold and it shouts at you. It's also sort of similar in a way to the posters of the Wild West, you know, wanted, dead or alive, but this is wanted in a positive way, right? So I would go for the large font and the pictures, lots of pictures, and then I would say those are your attention grabbers in the AIDA. Let us see what our, yeah, there we go. Pictures of cute puppies. Cute and cuddly boys. Cute and cuddly. They've got it right. Okay, and the use of different sized fonts. Yes, that is, in my opinion, perfect answer there. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Refer to the following lines in the bold copy. Are you a responsible person? Do you like to help your neighbor? Do you love dogs? All right. Explain the purpose for including these rhetorical questions. Now, please note, you can't say that it's a rhetorical question being used because that information has been given to you in the question. So you've got to come up with a good reason. Well, you know, I look at this and I think, yeah, I'm a responsible person. Do you like to help your neighbor? Well, yeah, I'm a good guy. I do that. Do you love dogs? Yes. But I'm still not going to go for this. So they're going for the emotion to a certain extent. There's sort of, when people get questions like this and they say, but hey, I'm a nice guy. I'm a good guy. Yes, this does apply to me. But it's sucking them in. Let's take a look at what the memo answer is. There we are. An emotional response with the readers and manipulate them. You know, that is very true. Advertiser knows that readers would like to admit that they would like to claim to be responsible people, and people do like to help other people usually. Okay, but here, that is, of course, an example of the answer. Over here, it talks about any valid answers that show understanding, that it's using manipulative and emotive techniques. See that? Trying to control, trying to control. Okay? Always go for the heart, don't go for the mind. Logic and reasoning, it takes a far second place to good old-fashioned emotions when it comes to making choices for most people. Right, and we go back to our question paper. And here, when I was reviewing this, I was sharing this with my colleague, Mr. Ntia Mpanya, and as soon as I saw use a prefix and give the antonym for the underlined word in the following sentence, I was able to predict what the word would be because it is not a standard negative prefix. Okay, so let's go look at the, yep, there we are, responsible. Now, automatically, most people who are not skilled in English are going to think it must be unresponsible. There are similar words, by the way. For example, if a person is lying unconscious after an accident, they can say he's unresponsive. So it's not too illogical, but it's not correct. The correct one is of course, irresponsible. And we must be very careful not to credit, in this case, we must not credit incorrect answers. Let's just look at the memo where it says irresponsible, tick, that's it, that's the answer. There are no other correct answers. Okay, and then refer to the following sentence here. Let me take this higher up on the board. We need you to help raise the next generation of working dogs. Okay, why is it in capitals and in bold? Well, obviously it's stressing. So what is it stressing? Well, the fact that help is desperately needed to raise guide dogs and sniffer dogs and that sort of thing. Let's see what it says here. Emphasize how urgent the need is for people to raise dogs. Okay. And again, manipulate or persuade, making them feel you're needed, you're really needed. Okay, good. Nothing too complex there. Correct form of the word in the following sentence. The weekly attend of training classes by puppy raisers is compulsory. Now, we need to fit a noun in there. Attend, in its current form, is a verb. And you can't have a verb in place of a noun. So we're going to need a noun to replace it logically, so we'll get attendance. The weekly attendance. Let's just go here. Yep, there it is. That's what it has to be. Okay. Once again, logical, no other answers possible that I can think of. Then, do you think, oh boy, Marks Mahala, because you're allowed to express an opinion, and as long as you've got a logically stated opinion, you can't go wrong. Okay. Do you think the images used in this advertisement are suitable for what the advertiser wants to achieve? Motivate your answer. Well, in my opinion, yes. Suitable, all right. It just doesn't appeal to me because I couldn't stand the thought of losing a pet just after I brought it up. But obviously from the memo point of view, it's going to be yes or a no. You can choose. Okay, there it is. I'm not going to go into detail now. It's not necessary. Then accept other responses. 1 mark for a half-baked answer, and accept a combination answer of both yes and no. So there it's very nice and open. Okay, nothing too complicated. And memo answers are very well thought out. Okay, let us not stop at that point. I see we're going along quite nicely. So let's go at this point straight over to our comic strip. And boy, this is one of my favorites. Zits, Jeremy, and of course his friend Pierce. I like this cartoon. Lots of fun. Stereotyping the poor parents. Okay, so what have we got? We've got the father chopping away at a hedge in the garden, and got Jeremy coming up and offering to help. And there, yep, want to be more helpful. And here things start going crazy. I mean, already there, you notice the difference in font size. Let me do that, Dad, standard statement. And the font size there, much bigger. The father's looking, really? Yeah, I need to start being more helpful. Wait, what? Now it's starting to go right out of the, up into the clouds. And this famous statement here, what's your game, Buster? And the mother, now the mother comes in. Is something wrong? Yes, Jeremy's helping me in the yard. What? Why? Better not be a ploy to get a video of me. That's it, you're grounded. Now things snowball and suddenly the mountain has appeared out of the molehill, etc. And then there's, in the final frame there, you've got Pierce, his friend. You know, what are you in for? In other words, why are you in prison? Attempted maturity. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Lots of fun. And I hope the candidates enjoyed it as much as I enjoy it. Okay, because I think it's perfect stereotyping and perfect satire. Okay. So let's move on and look at the questions. Oh, take note of this. This is a PDF copy we're looking at here. And you notice that the writing is slightly blurred. It's not completely clear. Okay, you can see it because now it's expanded and everything like that. But for safety's sake, there you've got what's really written. And now it's absolutely clear text, just in case. I appreciate this very much. This is what is needed in many cases where schools do not have the latest in printing gear. They're still using old Duplos and whatever those other things are to make copies. And sometimes copies are slightly blurry. So when this is written out like this, it's a fantastic idea. Okay, let's take a look. 4.1.1, what is the father busy doing? And I take a look at that, and that was part of my childhood experience, and I can say, he's hedge trimming. And it says there, give one visual clue to support your answer. It's simple, he's holding hedge trimmers. And he's clipping, you can see the bits of the hedge flying off. Okay, now this, I'm doing this deliberately because the memo answer is fully correct, by the way, but is different from mine because I have hedge trimming in my past experience, my schema. I have it there. I've seen it being done. Not everybody has got that. Not everybody has a hedge around their house. Nowadays, just good old-fashioned fences are more likely. So now let's look at memo answer. Here we are. He is gardening. Yes, he is. Perfectly correct answer. Also here, pruning or cutting a shrub or a bush. Yes. Perfectly correct answer. So, but I'm just using the hedge trimming example as a way of showing we have different backgrounds and experiences. Just getting, yeah, I've got it on my crib notes. I've got on the table in front of me the comments that I made on my hard copy of the memo as I went through this one. Okay, and how do you know it? There he's holding the shears, he's wearing gardening gloves, and the pieces of leaves are flying off the bush. And in case you're wondering, I didn't notice the gardening gloves. I got the other two though. Okay, next question. What's your game, Buster? All right. Right, what's in full? Well, that's for most people fairly simple. That is simply what is. All right. We don't have to go to the memo to look at that. That's a basic one. Good. Frame 4. One word to describe the mother's reaction. Come on, let's have some fun and go to frame 4. There we are. What? Why? Shock, horror, total confusion, confounded, incomprehensible what she's seeing. Okay, one word though. So I would say dumbfounded would be a good one, or confounded, shocked. Let's see what the memo answers are. Come on. Okay, surprised, shocked. Yes, but it's got accept any suitable synonym for the above. And incidentally, when I was preparing this, I was continually picking up my phone and Googling synonyms for various words in this thing. And it's absolutely astounding how many synonyms you've got which are correct in context, not only there, but in the various other places as well. But anyway, now we have to say how we know. Let's go back to our picture, because I'm really enjoying this. Sorry, bear with me. How do we know? Look at the eyes, wide open, absolute, jaw open. And of course, what's she saying? What? Why? Double question marks to show utter bewilderment. Okay, so let's take a look at our memo answers. Right, jaw has almost dropped to the ground. Okay, that's a bit of hyperbole there, but it's very effective. Mouth wide open, yes. Eyes wide open. Right, 2 questions. What? Why? Large font, yeah, double question marks used. Okay, note this, 1 for the visual, 1 for the verbal. Okay, because that is definitely specified in the question. Then, number 4.4. Here's another one where you can go absolutely mad with the synonyms. There's, I wouldn't say countless ones, but there's at least 20 words that can be used here. Give a synonym for ploy. All right, let's take a look at the memo answer. Because this, I must just see if I can, I'm going to do something under the, no wait, I won't do it yet. But we've got this document reader here. And later on, there's another word. I want to show you all the synonyms, because it really was an eye-opener to me how the meaning of this word has changed from its original form. But anyway, a ploy. What have we got? We've got here trick, plan, strategy, scheme. I wrote down here also plot, device, ruse, or tactic that I could come up with. Okay, so how many more there are? Well, there are many more. So don't be shy in cases like this. If you come across an answer that you think might be wrong, but it's got just a ring of possibility about it, Google it. Okay, Google synonyms. You just type in there, ploy, synonym, and you'll see, you'll be very surprised at what comes out. Okay, let's go back. Frame 6. In frame 6, that's the, there we are there. There's the guy sitting in sort of shocked misery? Yes. Is he in a dejected state of mind, a jovial state of mind, an aggravated state of mind, or a triumphant state of mind? And the only one possible there is dejected, because he tried to do the right thing and his parents thought that he was being skellum. Okay, finally, do you think the cartoonist is stereotyping parents of teenagers in this cartoon? Substantiate your answer. In my case, yes, definitely. He's ripping off the way that they always distrust the teenagers, and they're forever trying to predict when the teenagers are about to play a trick on them, etc., etc., etc. So, yes, I do think that they're stereotyping parents. But once again, let's take a look at our memo answer. Yes. Okay. No. Okay. And both of these are very good answers. So take a look at them when you get a chance. Accept other suitable responses. 1 mark for a substandard combination answer of yes and no. Yeah. Then the answer should reveal an understanding of what stereotyping is and should be clearly linked to the text. Okay, so those are actually the most important elements to look at in this particular case. Stereotyping is understood and it ties in with the text. Now we're going to take, that was our 4th section in this memo discussion. We're going to take a final break just for a minute or so again before we look at our final section where we go into the pure language stuff. So take 60 seconds, get your water, your coffee, whatever, and I'll see you again shortly. Goodbye for now. Welcome back. This is our 5th and final section in our memo discussion for today. Here we are looking at the final section of pure language skills. And here we've got this text which we are not going to read through, except for me to make 2 little comments. Sho Majosi meets John Cena. Actually, it's John Cena. But what I'm pointing out here is that once again, a knowledge of these people is required. And just for the record, I did not have this knowledge of who Sho Majosi is. And that could have led to a problem because I initially assumed that Sho Majosi was a male. And it was only when my colleague informed me that, she's a she, not a he, that I realized this has an influence on one of the questions in this. Let's take a look at the questions. We won't read through the text because we are relatively short of time, so I'll make this quick. Right. 5.1, correct the single error in each of the following sentences. Write down only the question numbers and the words you have corrected. Okay, so A, I didn't see him come in, so when people are screaming, I thought I was killing it. Oh dear. Got 2 verbs in the past tense and 1 in the present tense, so that word there, are. So when people were screaming, it should be. Okay. This was what Sho Majosi had to say after the performer finally got to meet and eat, I think, former wrestler John Cena. Okay, problem there, that spelling, that is of course a homophone because it's spelt differently from to meet and greet. This is spelt in the form of nice, juicy steak. So it should be M-E-E-T. The surprise was orchestrated by the Kelly Clarkson show, or is it surprise? What it definitely isn't is surprise. There's an R missing over there. Okay. They showed their support by letting her know how much they were cheering at her. Well, you don't cheer at somebody. You jeer at them, but you don't cheer at them. You cheer for them. So there, I would say preposition for required. Let's take a look. Yep. Were, meet, surprise, and for. Okay. Then rewrite the following sentence in the past tense. Now, just to specify here, there are only 3 tenses in English. It's past, present, and future. However, there are different forms of those tenses. So in this case, we can change this either into the simple past tense or into the simple past perfect tense. Let's take a look at the sentence. The rapper's reaction has warmed the hearts of many on social media. Okay, so to make it into this, well, let's just take a look at the memo answers. They're both very well explained. You can use either had warmed, which would give you past perfect, or you could simply say the rapper's reaction warmed the hearts of many. The first one there, that would make it past perfect tense, and this one here is the simple past tense. And that's that. Either one of those answers is of course correct, because they are both past tense. Okay, and here's where the problem came in about gender. Rewrite the following sentence in reported speech. Okay, Shaw Majosi said, "My video went viral last year." Okay, so in my case, I said, Shaw Majosi said that his video had gone viral the previous year. Except it's not his, it's hers. So, people, please take into account when you are marking that you are likely to encounter ignorant people such as myself, and you must allow for the fact that some will not know the correct gender of Shaw Majosi. Okay, note that, please. Then we carry on. Rewrite the following sentence in formal English, where she says, "I thought I was killing it." In other words, she thought she was, I said it, she thought she was performing, I thought I was performing well, or dramatically, or something like that. There's various other answers as well. Let's take a look here. Yeah, there we are. I thought I was performing well. That is exactly the answer that I would have given. Or she says, I thought that I was doing well. Okay, but there are many other possible responses. Now, give the synonym for the underlined word in the following sentence. Wait, let me just take this up to the top of the screen. Shaw Majosi has displayed to the world the unique identity of our African people. Now, in the old days, i.e. when I was young, there was only one synonym for unique. The word unique means the only one. And the only synonym for unique is the word singular. They're interchangeable. They are exact synonyms. And there are no other synonyms if you are being strict. But this is what I wanted to show you. Stand by while I see if I can just get this document scanner to work, because this was an education for me. Okay, let's see. Here we go. We've got it, yes. Here is what I did on my phone. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah. Do you see that? Unique, adjective, And now it's got distinctive, individual, special, especial, idiosyncratic, quirky. Unique is no longer limited in meaning to the only one. Sorry, let me just go back to that text. So quite a variety of other words are now accepted in English as synonyms. Here we've got true, real, genuine, original. Okay? But we've also got underneath there, accept any valid synonym. So please, if your candidates come up with something that isn't precisely according to that list, Google it and see if it captures the spirit of the word as it is now generally used. Okay, let us go back. Choose the correct word to complete the sentence. You've got the choice between admires or admire. And here you have John Cena, comma, as well as Kelly Clarkson, comma, admires Sho Majorzi's creativity. I would go for admires. This is actually quite a tricky question because you must be able to identify the subject of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is John Cena. As well as Kelly Clarkson is in fact a phrase, an additional phrase. It's not part of the subject. So there we are. The subject is singular, therefore it's admires. Let's just look at the memo answer just to prove my point. There it is there. Admires. Okay. Then, rewrite the following sentence into a tag question. John Cena remarked how amazing it was to finally meet her. And immediately I try to picture myself in conversation with somebody. And I'm slightly uncertain about whether my sentence is correct or not. So I'll say to you, John Cena remarked how amazing it was to finally meet her, didn't he? And immediately I've got my tag question. I add, didn't he? Just to show that I'm not entirely certain and I need a response of agreement from you before I'll do it as a statement of fact. So you can have didn't he or did he not. Let's just look at our memo answer there. And we've got there, didn't he or did he not? And note that the question mark must be included. Otherwise, the answer is not correct. Okay. And let's go back here to our final brilliant multiple choice question. Okay, tweeps. I've heard that word. I think it's got something to do with Twitter, where you combine Twitter and people or something like that. And it is the only reason I could actually come up with an answer here is because I could eliminate what it couldn't be. It's not an acronym, which is an abbreviation that can be read out as a word. It's not an honorific. An honorific is something like Mr., Mrs., Professor, Doctor, His Royal Highness, whatever. It's not a euphemism. It's not a soft way of saying something nasty. Therefore, it must be a neologism, which is a creation of a new word, normally by combining old words together. Okay, so it's de-neologism. Let's move on. I'm watching the time. Oh, this brilliant, brilliant, brilliant cartoon. This is an example of a cartoon as opposed to a comic strip, because a cartoon only has a single frame, whereas a comic strip has multiple frames. Anyway, there we are. I'm reading an updated version of Romeo and Juliet. This time their relationship comes to a tragic end when she unfriends him on Facebook. I can picture this. This is brilliant satire ripping off the new techno generation. Hey, that is clever. That is really clever. That gets a laugh out loud from me. Okay, so we've got rewrite the following sentence in the passive voice. Now, all you have to do is identify the object. and then you put the object in the front of the sentence. So I is the subject currently, am reading is the verb, so it's in continuous form, an updated version. All right. And there's your object, an updated version of Romeo and Juliet. So it's with that you have to start the sentence. So automatically I look at that and I say, an updated version of Romeo and Juliet is being read by me. In this case, I would include the object, but often it isn't necessary. Let's take a look at our memo answer. Okay, an updated version of Romeo and Juliet is being read, or an updated version of Romeo and Juliet is being read by me. I would use, in this instance, I would include by me, but it's subjective. The other answer is perfectly correct. All right. Bear with me, we're just about there. Okay. The correct form of tragic in the following sentences. Now, tragic is, of course, an adjective. So we have to make sure that in the first one, we convert it into a noun. Romeo and Juliet is a, and to make it into a noun, we'd have to change it to, it's a tragedy, written by Shakespeare. And of course, there in the form B, we leave it as an adjective. Romeo and Juliet is the love story ever written. So there we'll have to change it into the adjective's superlative form. So, and we can't say tragicist. So we have to say most tragic. Let's take a look at our memo answers there. You see that? Tragedy, the noun, and most tragic, the superlative form of tragic. Okay, there. Now we have to identify the parts of speech. Okay, I am reading an updated version. Version is a noun. Therefore, updated is adjective, because it is describing a noun. And then, of course, B, of Romeo and Juliet. Of, to the best of my knowledge, can only be a preposition. Prepositions are those little linking words that clarify meaning in a sentence. Very difficult to define, by the way. That's my definition. And change a preposition normally, and you can wind up with absolute catastrophe and a complete change in meaning. But anyway, let's look at our memo there. Right, adjective and preposition. And finally, what is the function of the apostrophe in I'm? Okay, now I'm is, of course, the shortened form of I am, which is a contraction. And so the function of the apostrophe, the little is to show either that two words have been contracted into one, or it is to show that a letter has been omitted, or letters. In this case, only one letter. A letter has been omitted. And let's take a look at our memo. And well, to indicate a contraction or to indicate where a letter has been omitted. People, normally at this stage, I'd say, any questions? Unfortunately, we no longer have a method of communicating directly, but all I'm going to say is I hope that you, the markers, found this useful. I hope that you found it practical, and I hope that it's going to improve the quality of the marking. I think I've done my best to cover every possible option where other things could be included. And if you've been taking notes, of course, hats off to you. So at this point, we're going to say goodbye. Just a reminder that this was the fifth and final part of the marking guideline discussion of the English First Additional Language Grade 12 June exam of 2021. Goodbye for now.